The next two concepts I wanted to talk to you about are straightening your legs and V walks. So the reason we straighten our legs in West Coast Swing is because it's great for absorbing energy. The calf works against the knee as the leg straightens. So the calf can go down and the knee can go forward if there's a ton of energy. So the knee goes forward and the calf goes down when you straighten your leg. I can move backwards and I can move forwards doing that type of motion. But when some people learn to straighten their legs, what they'll do is they'll use their knees. What beginner students will do, beginner students will use just their knees. They won't use their calves. They'll stay back weighted. And the problem is you hit this type of position where I'm back and my weight is on my heel, and the best place to absorb energy is actually back through my knee, which means I'm going to over straighten my knee. But as long as your weight stays forward, as in you're on your toes, which means your calves are active, I can get my legs as straight as I want, and any extra energy, rather than going into this, which is like a locked leg, which is not a normal place for the force to go, it will go into this ankle coming down. My ankle moves closer to the floor as energy and weight is placed on it. If it touches the ground, any further weight when my knee is straight will go into my knee. So as long as the heel is slightly off the ground, you're not going to have energy going back through your knee. So that's why they say to dance on your toes and to straighten your legs. If you just dance on your toes and you don't straighten your legs, you're probably going to hurt your feet because there's not a lot of absorption happening through the knees. So you're going to be crashing into your feet and the balls of your feet are going to hurt if you're just dancing on your toes. And if you're just straightening your legs, like I said, you're going to send force backwards behind your knee because the force can't absorb into your heel going towards the ground. As soon as the heel hits the ground, the only place that it can really go down, especially if you're back behind the foot, is down and behind your knee, which will hurt the back of your knee, but you'll feel it in the front. So that's why you must, when straightening your legs, you must stay toe weighted and have your heels up. So that's straightening your legs. You want to make sure that the heel comes closer to the ground as you straighten and the knee moves back. But the heel should never go all the way down into the ground such that the force is now transferred to your knee. So this is what it looks. This is an example of, I'm giving you an example of straightening my knees, straightening my legs properly. This is improperly because my heels are touching the ground. So that force is going back into my knees, that's bad. You want to do this, which is good, which is staying up on your knees and staying back weighted as you straighten your legs. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is V walks. So think of a V starting from yourself and going outwards. If I walk on a rail, I really don't need to do this. I really don't need to do V walks if I walk on a rail, because my force is not moving side to side at all. But if I want to do like a walk, if I want to do a walk with wider legs, I'm really creating that type of V action. It doesn't work well backwards, but walking forwards, you can see that now my legs are turned out because I'm not moving straight forward. I'm moving to the side and forward, to the side and forward, to the side and forward. So that is how a V walk works. And we V walk in West Coast Swing because they tell you not to walk on a line, on a tightrope. They tell you to walk on two separate rails. And the point of that is so that your hips move diagonally. So you want the foot and the knee to point along the V. As far as your hips are concerned, you should feel, if you're a follow and you're pulling your hips along, you should feel like you're pulling your hips to the side and forward, to the side and forward, to the side and forward, so that the motion of your hips is along that line of the V. Your hips move along the V, move along the V. As a lead, you want to feel like you're pushing your hips along the V. So if I'm moving backwards, I'm pushing, 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 pushing. Along, so yeah, the hips move in general in a V shape because the hips is where most of your momentum is. So if you want your momentum to move forward in a snaking motion instead of in a straight line, I can walk forward without any V shape, and that looks like this. This is going to mean that I don't use my hips and I don't use my shoulders, because shoulders are for steering, which means if I want to turn left, I'm going to turn my shoulders left. If I want to turn right, I'm going to turn my shoulders right. The head really helps you remember to use your shoulders, so if you also look when you want to turn, it's much easier to turn. If I want to go that way, and I look that way. But for spotting, you need to be able to decouple those, so I would mainly just say that the shoulders create turns. So if I'm walking in an S shape, that means when I walk forward on my right foot, I'm slightly moving that way, which means my steering, my shoulders, should face that way. Now I'm going to walk this way, so my steering should face that way. I'm pulling in this example, by the way. Pulling. Again, my shoulders face the direction of motion. On the strike, on the strike, on the strike. Because I'm walking forward on rails and not linearly. If I was walking just completely straight forward with no side-to-side motion at all, I would keep my shoulders straight, my hips straight. There's no real reason for a V if I'm walking on a line. So that's the shoulders of the V walk, the hips of the V walk, and the knees of the V walk. The first thing I mentioned was straightening of the legs, which, when done properly, protects your knees and your feet. The dancing on your toes only and not straightening your legs at all locks the whole knee, which means that the hamstring is the only thing absorbing, and the hamstrings are not quite strong enough to make that a soft landing unless you've got really strong hamstrings. So your feet are smashing into the ground. However, if you straighten your legs and you don't use your calves, you're going to hurt your knees. So you have to use actively your quads and your calf muscles at the same time to prevent your knee from hitting, your heel from hitting the ground hard. It can touch the ground lightly. And to prevent your knee from being your leg from being completely straight while your knee is not bent. So those two concepts are straightening your legs and V walks. And that's how to prevent injury with both of those concepts.